Hello, everybody. Happy New Year's, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles pregame show. Bo Wulf, Jamie Lynch here to take you through everything that's going on ahead of the Eagles-Cardinals game. Jonathan Gannon is back in town. I'm sure Jamie has some thoughts on that. We're going to hear from Zach Berman in a little bit, who's going to give us the scoop on some inactives. The Eagles getting back a few key players in this game. Avonte Maddox, Landon Dickerson, Nicholas Morrow, maybe a little bit less key than the first two, but the Eagles getting healthy at the right time, and they got some help on Saturday night with, thanks to the refs, really, missing that procedural call. The Lions lose, and that means that the Eagles, if they can only beat two teams against whom they are over 10-point favorites, the Cardinals and then the Giants next week, they will be the first NFC East repeat champion since 2004, and no worse than the 2 seed overall. That feels like things are looking up for the Eagles, Jamie, but do you feel like the team itself is ready to take advantage of that opportunity?
I don't know, and that's the best I can give you. What I saw last week with the reactions to the head coach, now that stuff probably happens on a pretty frequent basis, but when it happens with some of your star players and the head coach and the cameras catch it, it gives me the sense as a fanalist here that there's some tension in that building. And I want to say that, yes, they're going to come out here and correct it versus a pretty porous defense. But I can't say it with confidence. I think they're going to come out today, but we haven't really seen it for 4 quarters all season long. So it's hard for me to now say, like, this is it. This is the week they're going to do it.
It would be nice to see it. As you said, this is the Cardinals defense that ranks 32nd in the league in DVOA, terrible against the run. They're also injured, so they're missing a lot of the players that they had who were even just okay. Seems like an opportunity for the Eagles offense to finally put a full game together. Now, they were very productive last week against the Giants, but obviously stepped on their own feet a couple times. If they could put together a complete game, certainly that would make you feel better. But even still, in the back of our mind, it'll be like, oh, well, it was just the Cardinals.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Until we get to the playoffs, it's going to be hard to decide. But from like a vibe standpoint, it might be nice for that locker room to sort of believe in itself.
Yeah, and especially the last home game at the LINC on the year, you want to head into the playoffs with like some recent good memories there. I think Avonte Maddox back is huge. The only unfortunate thing with him is he can just never stay healthy, because every time he seems to get hurt or injured, the defense seems to suffer, because he's a very versatile player. I think he's almost underrated. It's just he's always hurt.
Yeah.
So I think getting him back is huge today. That could be like a little bit of a pick-me-up for this defense. But, some of these Jeff McClain stories this week about Desai getting stripped of third down play calling was so mind-boggling to me that I feel like the vibes are just off. And I don't know if that can be corrected or not.
Well, I guess we will find out as the game and as the end of the season goes on. You mentioned Avonte Maddox. Zach has talked about the excitement in the locker room to get that guy back.
He seems like that guy,
he's a very
right?
well-liked player, and brings a certain energy on the field. Interesting that Bradley Roby is inactive in this game, joining Darius Slay, Zach Cunningham, Tyler Steen, Marlon Tuipulotu, and Tanner McKee. I guess that means because Roby doesn't play as much of a role on special teams, they don't need him up, but that means if Maddox, who has a history of getting injured, goes down, you're looking at Eli Ricks or maybe even Sidney Brown as a backup in the slot. Tyler Steen being down means that Sua Opeta is the backup guard. We talked about Landon Dickerson is back. He gets to play with Cam Jurgens. Marlon Tuipulotu down means that Moro Ojimo is taking over that spot as a defensive tackle. And then Cunningham, who was questionable on Friday, downgraded to doubtful yesterday. That means you'll probably see Nicholas Morrow there with Shaq Leonard at linebacker.
Yeah, it's the cornerback one is the interesting one to me. Do you see a situation, because you know the Eagles as well as anybody, where James Bradberry could be playing for his job here? Because I think the young guys have played fairly well. There's some mistakes, obviously, that happen with young players. But overall, they've shown an athleticism that's kind of needed right now. Do you see any situation, and I'll ask Zach the same question, where Bradberry could potentially not be the best option
in this season, or in the offseason?
Into the playoffs?
I think he is too heady for them to move him to the bench. I think there are maybe some roles in which they can move him inside. We've seen in those dime packages he goes inside. I imagine that'll be the case again today. Ringo there's some kind of rotation against certain receiver types, but I would be surprised if he was relegated to the bench in favor of Ricks or Ringo.
I would be too, but it crossed my mind this week of he's the guy that's like getting picked on. And
no doubt about it.
With Matt Patricia coming in and basically auditioning for the DC job, like I wonder how heavy-handed he will make like these decisions that your normal DC might go like, I can't do that to a vet right now. But if you're Matt Patricia, you might be going, James Bradbury is killing me. Like I got to get one of these young athletic kids
it's not
in
his
there.
Player,
Yeah, so he has no ties to it. So I was curious about that this week. Because,
and then Darius Slay's return is obviously a factor there too. They need him back.
But Maddox kind of gives you that ability to maybe if you wanted to take a shot on a Ricks or a Ringo and put him in there.
All right, let's head to Lincoln Financial Field now. Zack Burman, the man with the plan. Happy New Year, Zach. How are you?
Happy New Year. Great to see you guys. Not often that I get to speak to you before a game at 12:30. So this is nice.
My wife and kids were very happy about that. This is quite weird doing a 1 o'clock game. Only second time this year? Or third?
Third time this year. Third time. The 2 Washington games in this. So it shows you the company Washington's in. Or the company Arizona's in, perhaps.
Yes, Zach and I mentioned this on the back and forth, which you can read on all PHLY. Like we have seen Fletcher Cox excited about some things when he's been in here. he lights up about Jalen Carter. Talking about like remembering some of his past defensive tackle teammates. I have not seen him as happy as he was to get to play a 1 o'clock game today.
I would imagine this schedule has been brutal for them this year.
And they may get moved again next week. We will see about that. But Zach, some interesting inactive stuff. So let's talk about that first. What is your read on why Bradley Roby is the guy who is down among the corners?
Yeah, my assumption with that is that special teams related. The fact that he's only played, I think, 2 or 3 special team snaps all season. So you have Avonte Maddox back in the slot. Then if Roby's a backup and you feel confident in Maddox taking the full workload or at least enough of the workload, you're not going to sit Ricks or Joe. Both of them have major special teams roles. So that's my read into it. Now, this probably goes into the next question or the question after. You could have had Roby up instead of Rashad Penny. And so that's an interesting dynamic there. But my read on the Roby situation is that special teams related.
Yes, we're all very excited for Jamie, your boy Rashad Penny, up in this game for the first time in a while.
Zach, if I set the over-under at 1.5 rushing attempts for Mr. Rashad Penny, what would you take there?
I'm going over for 2 reasons. First off, I can't imagine you dress 4 running backs just for insurance, right? Like there has to be a reason. He has to be in this game plan, or perhaps it's for kick return purposes after the kick return last week. Who knows? But my guess is that he'll get a carry here or there, and they're going up against the rush defense that allows the most rushing yards per game, that ranks 31st in rush DVOA. So they're susceptible, Arizona, on the ground, and they allow, they're better in terms of passing yards allowed ranking than the rushing yards allowed ranking. So this could be a game where the Eagles rely on the offensive line, on the backs, and listen to the fans chanting "run the ball" and actually respond to that. So yeah, I would go over 1.5. I mean, not a significant margin, but maybe 3-4 carries.
Yeah.
Well, Zach, you mentioned that defense. We talked all week about this being Jonathan Gannon's return to Philadelphia. Give us the scene. Who was he talking to on the field before the game, and has there been any reaction from the fans thus far?
So I had my binoculars out, right? And I was watching.
Boy, were you taking those potato pictures again?
I mean, what am I supposed to do? I'm up here like 4 levels up. Someone messages me, "You're the worst camera take," or you put the worst pictures out on the beat. And you know what? If that's what I'm worst at on the beat, so be it. I'll get better at that.
You got to make them even worse.
So, Zach, I think for like boomers, they have a photography class at the Genius Bar. So maybe one day we'll record you going to the Genius Bar and getting a photo lesson.
No, I have a good phone. I'm just so high up. But anyways, that's besides. I need to get a field pass for this purpose. But that's besides the point. So anyways, I was watching like the pre-game warm-ups, and for those who don't attend the games, those are like the unofficial warm-ups. Players or coaches are out there before doing their own thing, and he was not out there. Sirianni was, and so I was like, this is interesting. And then he came out a little bit before the official warm-ups, and as he was coming out his tunnel, Jeff Stoutland embraced him, and then Howie Roseman came over. They embraced and talked. And then Jeffrey Lurie came over. They embraced and talked. Then he caught up with Sirianni. and they had an embrace. Some other people stopped by, whether it was Patuo and some other people within the building. Not as many players. Players were at that point stretching. And Darius Slay had a good interaction with Gannon, and then Gannon went over to the Cardinals side. So that was kind of the extent of it. Everything. I know I'm just reading body language, which we tend to do now in Philadelphia quite a bit. But everything seemed to be it seemed to be cordial, catching up, hugs, embraces. There wasn't any awkward interactions, at least from watching from 4 stories above.
So, Zach, from what you've heard this week, how conscientious are Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni about how well Jonathan Gannon knows their system, their calls, their cadences, everything? He knows them very well, as good as anybody in the league, obviously. How much are they changing up? How much are they considering that in the game plan today?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've spoken to people kind of on the record and behind the scenes about this topic, and the answer you kept getting is, yeah, he knows us real well, but we know him real well. Now, the difference, of course, is that he has different personnel. Like, the Eagles don't know his personnel as well. He does know Jalen Hurts, right? He practiced against Jalen Hurts for 2 years. They developed a good relationship. He knows the kinds of things that Jalen might not like to see. Now, as Bo said on the show this week, in the past, Jonathan's kind of been the guy who he plays his stuff. He doesn't make major changes week in, week out, right? But I am curious to see, and the Eagles know his tendencies, so they might know that they can run the ball on him, right? I mean, defense, or I should say offenses, ran the ball on that defense quite a bit during Gannon's past 2 years, that he doesn't like to give up the explosive plays. So, we'll see how that manifests. But I think that if you're looking for more of an advantage there in that relationship, it's probably on Gannon's side because he knows the Eagles personnel. But the Eagles have such a clear advantage in terms of personnel that I don't think anything like that will really play a factor into this game.
Yeah, Zach, I thought the tweet you put out yesterday, this is going to be Jonathan Gannon's Super Bowl. It was, I think you sort of knew what you were going to get on the replies to that.
I actually didn't, and the responses were fairly clever. I mean, I was probably a little too innocent-minded for that.
Let's hope so.
Yes, exactly. So that, and look, those are clever responses, and I have no pushback to that. That is, if this is Gannon's Super Bowl and it went like the last Super Bowl, Eagles fans will be happy, right? But no, I do think there's a sentiment in that building and when I say that building, the Eagles building, that this game is meaningful to Gannon, and that Gannon, look, they're a 3-win team. They don't really want to win at this point, right? They're playing for a good draft position. I mean, the players want to win, but you know what I mean. But this one matters to Gannon, I would imagine. So I'm curious to see if he kind of empties the cupboard in any way.
Can I ask? This is an inside baseball question here, Zach. How many Eagles reporters do you think will go to Jonathan Gannon's post-game press conference? Because he hasn't spoken to the Philadelphia media since the Super Bowl. Didn't talk after the Super Bowl. Didn't talk to reporters this week. Chose not to.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, my former employer, the Inquirer, they have about like 7 people here. So my guess is they should have like 2. And Arizona only has 2 reporters here. So I can't imagine that the Gannon press conference is going to be loaded with many Arizona questions. So my assumption is that there will be a decent amount, but there aren't that many places now, that have multiple people here, right? So you have to sacrifice the Eagles locker room, sacrifice Sirianni to go over and get Gannon. It's an interesting calculation. That is a good inside baseball media question. And you have to wonder, is that it has to be game relevant, in my opinion. It can't just be like, if you're going to miss the Eagles, it can't just be the right to Gannon story, because look,
I might sprint down there, Zach, and just get like a last-minute credential and ask him, Coach Gannon, do you think the Eagles' defense would be better this year if they still had Vic Fangio in place because you weren't a rat? Do you think that's a fair question, or is that too hard? My words, not yours.
I think the premise of the question has merit. I don't think the phrasing I would necessarily agree with. I I think there was some procedural stuff there. I wouldn't agree with the characterization, but certainly from a procedural perspective, it's not far fetched to think that.
Yeah.
Zach, give us the weather report and the food report as the Eagles prepare for New Year's here.
spread.
Yeah, decent day outside, right? I mean, I didn't have to wear like a winter jacket or even a jacket other than the
Or
sport
even
jacket
pants, as far as
coming
we
in.
can tell.
No, definitely that. All right, I can promise you that. But yeah, it's certainly different than I probably made this reference a few times this week. The last time the Eagles played on New Year's Eve was the 2017 season. A matter of fact, in honor of that game, they were honoring Bo Allen. He's the honorary captain. Bo Allen took a lot of snaps that day.
He had to play, yeah.
So anyways, that day I just remember it was a 6-0 Eagles loss to the Cowboys, and it was bitterly cold. I vividly recall that walk from my car to the stadium, and that was as cold as it's been here during my 12 years. Was that New Year's Eve game against the Cowboys? This is actually decent weather today for a December 31st game. Now the food spread. Second 1 o'clock game, and they got the breakfast going, the omelet bar, all that. They don't realize that some reporters have been up since 6 a.m. So this is actually lunchtime. But I never complain about the food. I'm here to cover a game, do pre and post, to write a good story, and to try to.
There's no New Year's hook to the food. There's no thematic for New Year's.
What's New Year's thematic food? Out of curiosity.
Pork and cabbage.
Because
it's a big Irish thing.
Gotcha.
Balls.
Gotcha. Huh? Oh, like the ball
balls
dropping.
dropping.
Okay, gotcha.
And the blowers.
I was actually asking for my own purposes because I'm trying to figure out a dinner for tonight because it did occur to me this is a 1 o'clock game, so I am gonna be home tonight. When the schedule came out, I'm like, yeah, it's New Year's Eve's a Sunday, so count me out for New Year's Eve. But I am gonna be home tonight for New Year's Eve, so got to plan a dinner. So whatever a New Year's Eve festive dinner is, I don't know if pork and cabbage will go over well, but I'll
that's a New Year's Day
out.
tradition.
New Year's Day tradition. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right, Zach. Last thing, as we have talked about ways that the Eagles can sort of make you feel differently about them. What is one thing you would like to see today that would matter to you in the big picture and not just going to get a win against a bad football team?
Yeah, I mean, I think margin of victory matters today, right? Like you want to show that you're significantly better than this team that they're playing. Mechanically, I would say the turnovers are a big thing here. You don't want to be sloppy with the ball. You don't want to have miscues. You want to start playing clean football going into the postseason. Now, like I can say running the ball well and blocking at the line, but I'm expecting them to do that. They're playing against perhaps the worst rush defense in the league, right? So I don't think there's anything that the Eagles can do where I would say like, all right, they've solved this, they solved that. It's playing a clean game, getting momentum. Certainly you want to see the pass rush start to wake up and you want to see them get home and not start to get more sacks than pressures. But at this point, right, I mean, last night's result worked out well for the Eagles. So things are going in the Eagles' favor. They're getting healthier. They need to beat two teams with losing records to win the division, potentially get the 2 seed, the 1 seed, or to get the 2 seed, and the 1 seed still up for grabs. So you just don't want to see the Eagles take a step back. You want to see them kind of continue this momentum that could be generating going into the postseason.
Zach, final one for me. How much chatter in the press box was there today about the finale of Dallas-Detroit last night?
Oh, quite a bit. That's a good point. Yeah, a lot of discussion about that play, that call, and for the listeners here, Bill Vinovich is the official today. So if you're expecting that to be relevant, I certainly hope there's not a poll report today. But if there is, I will be down there. Bill Vinovich has done one Eagles game this year. That was the Eagles-Rams game. And some of his notable Eagles games in the past include that Eagles-Falcons playoff game from January 2018 when his crew did not call pass interference against Jalen Mills on Julio Jones, right? So that could be good karma for the Eagles.
By the way, I thought that was not a very well done pool report from last night. Just between the two of us. I thought there was not enough pushback on like the actual mechanics of what happened
between the two of us and all the listeners. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
look, you got to understand when those pull reports are done, they're kind of done in real time, right? So he doesn't have the benefit at that point of Dan Campbell alerting them and with some of the information we have after the fact. I'm obviously going to be sympathetic to the pull report reporter because I understand a lot's going on there. But I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
Also, just I mean the ridiculousness of like that's the only venue of accountability for the referees is kind of ridiculous. But
sure, I hear you there.
We'll
Two other quick notes.
Yeah.
Two other quick notes. First off, from an inactive perspective, just some down the depth chart things that are just worth pointing out. The Eagles are going with Moro Ojomo over Marlon Tuipulotu at defensive tackle, and they're going with Sua Opeta over Tyler Steen. When, if you remember, before the offensive guard injuries, they were going with Steen and not Opeta. So maybe there's some questions about kind of the health of those guards. Maybe they want insurance there, or maybe it's just a weird thing where Opeta's playing better in practice. So I wanted to point that out. And then also shout out to a loyal listener, Tom, who is in from London for his first Eagles game.
Nice.
He listens to all our shows. He's here with his girlfriend, Emily. We chatted. We signed a book. I signed a book. I took photos. Asked him how we can improve the show. But I also wanted to point this out. This is gonna be a free plug here this time. But he's going from here to New York, and he needed to get tickets to a Knicks game, I believe. And he used the game time code PHLY.
Excellent.
So shout out to that. Yeah. So appreciate him listening. He listens to all the shows on the tube, and the only thing that is a negative is that he doesn't get to watch all the shows, so he didn't get to see the brilliance of Bo ordering the DeVito special and the Dom special.
So when you say the tube, do you mean the subway system or the tube as in? Okay, I didn't know if you were going TV reference tube.
Oh no! I think that's what they call like the subway.
Yeah, that's
London.
Their subway. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not well versed in London, so it's one of those things I just nodded and assumed he meant the subway. But in any event, shout out to Tom, and it was great meeting Tom and Emily today.
And the good news that Big Dom stopped by Farina DeVita himself recently. So,
I saw that.
That's all coming together, which is exciting stuff. Zach, thank you so much. We'll talk to you after the game. Enjoy your omelet.
Appreciate it. Talk to you guys after the game.
See you, Zach.
All right, thank you, Zach. Jamie.
So Zach's uncomfortableness level,
yes,
probably as well as anyone.
Yes.
When I called Jonathan Gannon a rat,
yes,
was he at a full 10? Or was that like an 8.5
yet? Yeah, I think that's that's more of like an 8.
Okay,
yeah.
all right,
yeah,
because I could sense his uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how high on the scale.
Sure, and the pants thing, I think raises
We're
it
serious
for him
people.
a little bit. Yeah, I think he wants to be associated with us. It makes him look good. Jamie, you were not here last week.
I was not. Yeah,
but that means that it's time to get back to the most followed money-making gambit in all of Philadelphia.
I think
and that is
2
the
1-1 weeks in a row there. On a little bit of a cold streak here.
Yeah, I mean you're doing just fine.
Yeah, the season record will be fine. It's shout out to Rich Hoffman too in the newsletter.
He does very well.
His picks are doing really well. And shout out to everybody in the chat. Make sure you're hitting that like button when you're in here today. All right, so I'm going to start it off. James Conner, I'm going to take over 13.5 rushing attempts.
Love that.
Yeah, I think they're going to, I think this Eagles defense has been proven you can run on in recent weeks, and James Conner's a workhorse. So I'm going to take the over there. And then Jalen Hurts, I think.
You think they're not going to run the ball?
Yeah, of course. I'm going to go over 245.5 passing yards. I don't know. Just like the way the DeVonta and AJ and Sirianni sneering was last week, I feel like there's going to be an influence to feed those guys the rock.
Yeah, that's maybe the most, it's a little bit more embarrassing to Gannon if you're throwing the ball all over him.
Yeah,
you're running it all over him. I'm going to go with DeVonta Smith. I feel like I go this one a lot. Over 56.5 receiving yards feels very low to me. I'll take that. Minus 115. I could see him having a big game. And then Kyler Murray against this Eagles defense that, yes, is getting people back. I think that the Eagles defense will be better against the run today than they have been in past weeks. And so I think they are still a little bit vulnerable on the outside. I think the Eagles offense is going to put up a lot of points, so there are going to be a lot of possessions for the Cardinals to throw the ball. I'm taking Kyler Murray over 254.5 yards. That's passing plus rushing yards. So
Okay.
I feel pretty good about that one.
Yeah, so we both kind of took quarterback overs there. If you had to kind of sense over or under type of game today, what do you think this is?
Yeah, I would tilt over. I don't know exactly what
Me
the
too.
number is, but
Yeah.
I think the Eagles are going to be able to really have a big game on offense, and I also think that the Cardinals, by the game flow, are going to be able to move the ball a little bit as well.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And the number for the over under is 47.5.
Yeah, I mean that feels about right. I would probably lean over, but
Again, this Eagles offense, you never get the sense can really put up 30 easily.
right. If they can be a little bit better in the red zone, these like reversion things we've talked about. If they can be better on third down defense, if they can not turn the ball over, maybe get a few takeaways, it should be easy to get there.
Yes,
but
a lot of
need
ifs
those
when you
things.
talk about the Eagles this year.
A lot of ifs. So let's see how they do today. Any final prediction from you?
I think the Eagles win. I'm not going to go over 30 because every time I do it, I regret it. So I'm going to say Eagles win 27 to 17.
Okay, and do
I
you
think it's
have
going to be right on the
any
number.
prediction on like the reception for Jonathan Gannon or anything? Any chance that are going to be directed his way?
Oh, yeah. I think he's going to get some heat today. Because think about it. I mean, if Vic Fangio's here, are the Eagles more stable as a franchise?
100%.
Throw all the hate that man's way. And look, I enjoyed last season, and I enjoyed the results his defense got.
What do you think? Do you think that is the best chant to direct at his way? Is just Fangio.
That's not bad.
Fangio.
Yeah, he would really feel that.
Yeah.
That's better than what else?
Tampering. Tampering.
Loss in this is like how infrequently that type of owner on owner, basically penalty happens in
Yes.
the league. Tells you something. Like
No doubt.
something was up.
Impermissible contact.
Yeah, I think you just hit him with the Fangio.
Contact.
Yeah, that's a
Or
little
just, yeah.
easier.
All right. Yeah, I think the Eagles are going to win this game. I think probably by like 11 points. I'm going to say 31-20.
Okay.
How about that? So they just don't beat the spread, but
We're in the same
a
neighborhood
comfortable
there.
game that's a little bit uneven as usual. That's my prediction. We will talk about it after the game. Enjoy the New Year's game, everybody.
Go Birds.
For Jamie and Andrew and Zach and all of us here at PHLY, we thank you for listening. We will talk to you immediately after the game for the PHLY Eagles post-game show to ring in the new year. But until then, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And as always, we love you.